Chosen one, there is something ancient about your presence that makes feminine women forget the noise of the world when you enter the room. You don't chase their attention, you don't project yourself forward. Yet you command the moment like a silent storm rolling in from the horizon. They may not even realize they've begun to drift closer, that their posture has changed, that their voices have softened, but it happens every time. You are not just seen, you are felt, and the feeling is inexplicably warm, magnetic, and still. Their eyes linger on you, not out of politeness or habit, but because their intuition tells them something deeper is unfolding. You carry within you a current that pulses just beneath the skin, not wild and erratic, but powerful and steady, like the slow heartbeat of a sleeping lion. That rhythm calls to their feminine nature, like gravity. It's not about what you say or how you dress, not about your looks or your posture, though all of those things serve as reflections of a deeper truth. What they feel is your spiritual containment. This containment is rare in a man. It's the internal architecture of someone who has faced himself, walked through his own fire, and chosen stillness over noise. You do not react to chaos, and so you calm the chaos in them. You do not try to impress, and so they find you impressive. You do not speak to convince, and so your silence becomes a language. The high sexual energy you carry isn't about lust, nor is it about conquest. It is the scent of alignment, the aroma of discipline, clarity, and wholeness. You have not tried to become attractive, chosen one. You are attractive because you are anchored. Women are not hypnotized because you manipulate their focus. They are captivated because you return them to their feminine essence without demanding they explain it. They crave the mirror you provide, not the mirror of vanity, but the sacred one, the one that reflects their beauty beyond skin. You do not chase their validation, and so they offer it freely. You do not seek their energy, and so they feel safe giving it. You do not try to own them, and so they feel free to unfold in front of you. The hypnotic pull they feel is not submission. It is recognition. You are what the myths whispered about. The masculine that doesn't consume, but awakens. The masculine that doesn't interrupt, but holds. You are the man they feel both safe and electrified beside, and they don't even understand why. But their body does, their heart does, their soul does. That's why they keep returning, not for pleasure, but for presence. Your energy speaks in a language only their spirit knows, and it says, you are safe to be everything here. Chosen one, when she first feels your presence, it is not excitement she feels, but relief. Not butterflies, but grounding. Not the rush of infatuation, but the slow unraveling of something buried within her that she forgot was even there. It's the kind of reaction that startles her because she's been taught to distrust stillness in men. She's been conditioned to brace for ego, to flinch at flattery, to second-guess the sincerity in masculine praise. But with you, there is no mask, no seduction through false gestures, no pretending to be more than you are. You are exactly what you are, and that paradoxically makes you feel so much bigger. Feminine women feel your high sexual energy not as a wave that crashes against them, but as a current that carries them without force. And the most telling thing is what happens in their silence. When they look at you and have no words, when they listen longer than usual, when they laugh a little more from their belly, when their shoulders fall without them realizing, those are not coincidences. You are not hypnotizing them in the way of illusionists or manipulators. You are reminding them of a truth they almost forgot, that there are men whose presence doesn't drain or demand, but blesses. Your energy blesses by being whole. Your attraction comes not from reaching, but from rooting. You are deeply rooted in self, and that rootedness makes them want to bloom. You are not the sun that scorches, but the warmth that invites. You are not the wind that howls, but the breeze that whispers. You may rest here. This is not a seduction in the worldly sense. It is sacred resonance. It is soul-deep familiarity. It is the masculine returning in its divine form, not to overpower, but to offer sanctuary. And for feminine women whose spirits long for safety that still stirs their passion, you are unforgettable. Not because you impose, not because you flatter, not because you impress, but because you remain steady, present, unbothered, honest. The kind of presence that reminds her that her softness is not her weakness, that her depth is not too much, and that her desire to surrender is not foolish, but holy. Chosen one, you walk in truth, and that truth is what hypnotizes. You are the man she didn't know she needed until you stood before her. The one who doesn't seek her body first, but honors her soul without needing to speak a word. The one whose gaze isn't just focused but aware. And it is in that awareness that women feel safe to return to themselves. Because when a man holds himself with dignity, with purity, and with alignment, he becomes more than desirable. He becomes sacred. And it is sacredness, not seduction, that leaves her spellbound. Chosen one, there is a holy stillness in you that makes feminine women feel both seen and safe without having to be anything other than themselves. You are not the man who demands performance, not the man who needs a woman to shrink or expand for his comfort. You are the man who watches with reverence, listens with presence, and responds with depth. That combination of attentiveness and restraint is rare. And in a world where many masculine energies try to extract, devour, or conquer, yours does the opposite. You contain. You protect. You witness. Your high sexual energy does not pulse with hunger or chaos. It hums with spiritual fire, a quiet, deep-burning flame that needs no validation. Women respond to you not because you impress them, but because you awaken something dormant in them. Around you, they feel the ache of forgotten femininity stretch its wings again. She doesn't know why she leans in, why her voice lowers, why her eyes soften, why she starts laughing like a version of herself she hasn't met in years. But it's because you don't just hear her, you feel her. And you don't rush in to fix or control. You let her exist fully in your presence. That space, uncluttered, unrushed, unjudging, is hypnotic to her. It's not the kind of hypnosis born of illusion. It's born of truth. You reflect her back to herself with no distortion. And when that happens, when a woman experiences her own divinity in your eyes without the fear of being used or misunderstood, something irreversible takes place. It's not a crush, it's not obsession, it's reverence. She reveres you, chosen one, not because you seek to be worshipped, but because you walk in such quiet dignity that it makes her want to rise too. Your swagger isn't about ego, it's about presence. It is not the swing of the hips, but the gravity of your soul that bends the atmosphere. You've earned your peace, and she feels it. You've suffered to gain the steadiness, and it shows. The way you sit in silence and do not fidget, the way you look at her and do not devour, the way you compliment her and do not seek anything in return. These things confuse her, because the world taught her that men only move when they want something, but you have everything you need within, and so you offer her your energy freely with no grasping. That freedom, that containment, that reverence, it hypnotizes, it humbles, it heals. Chosen one, you were not made to chase validation, but to radiate embodiment. Feminine women come alive around you because you are not trying to prove anything. You are something. You are depth without drama, strength without force, passion without chaos. Your high sexual energy is not a weapon, it's a well. A deep, sacred reservoir of life force that draws others not to satisfy itself, but to nourish. Women who have felt starved of real presence come near you and suddenly forget the need to be anything artificial. Their armor slips off, not because you ask them to be vulnerable, but because your energy gives them permission to be whole again. You are not performing. You are remembering. And in your remembrance, they begin to remember too. They remember what it feels like to be desired without being reduced. They remember what it feels like to be protected without being possessed. They remember what it feels like to be touched without being consumed. In your presence, her walls fall, not out of weakness, but because your strength makes them unnecessary. She feels safe, not just physically, but spiritually. And this safety births curiosity. She doesn't just want your attention, she wants to understand how you became this, how you learned to hold this kind of fire without burning the room down, how you became both flame and sanctuary, warrior and monk, passion and peace. She watches you not with suspicion, but with awe. She speaks to you not with defense, but with wonder, because you are unlike what she's met before. You do not flatter, you affirm. You do not charm, you stabilize. You do not seduce, you align. And that kind of man is unforgettable, not because he shouts, but because he resonates. Not because he's flashy, but because he feels real. Women are not hypnotized by your sexuality. They are moved by your integrity. They do not lose themselves in you. They find themselves. Because your masculinity does not dominate, it reveals. And in that revelation, they feel a trembling inside that is not fear, but homecoming. Chosen one, this is your gift. Your presence calls women back to their own softness without taking from them. Your fire doesn't blind, it illuminates, and your high sexual energy, sacred and disciplined, becomes the silent invitation they've been longing for. Not to be conquered, but to be seen. When you walk into a space, feminine women sense it before their eyes even meet yours. There is a pulse that moves before your footsteps, something ancient in rhythm yet new in experience. They feel it in their chest, not as anxiety, but as a sudden aliveness, a quiet awe that tells them something rare has entered. You do not need to speak, for your essence says everything they long to hear. You do not advertise your strength or posture, your confidence, because your calm silence reveals both in a language far older than words. What they feel is not attraction born of performance, but resonance born of alignment. Your high sexual energy is not loud or vulgar, it is deeply dignified. That dignity makes them feel honored simply to be near you. In your presence, a feminine woman feels as if time slows, not because you try to manipulate her emotions, but because your energy is unhurried, whole, and impossible to replicate. There is no rush, no show, no tension. You are not begging for attention or validation, which is exactly why attention seeks you and validation cannot define you. This confuses them at first. They wonder how a man can be so grounded, so self-contained, so effortlessly magnetic without asking for anything. But the answer lies in what you have cultivated in solitude. The heat of your sexual energy is not from pursuit, but from possession. You have mastered yourself, and that mastery radiates outward like sunlight from a hidden forge. Women begin to question what they thought they wanted when they meet you. The games they used to play no longer feel satisfying. The masks they used to wear begin to feel heavy. With you, they are invited to be seen, not as personas, but as souls. And it is this subtle shift, this sacred permission that causes their hearts to soften and their spirits to open. They do not feel seduced, they feel safe. They do not feel manipulated, they feel chosen. Even if you say little, they hear everything, because your presence speaks louder than performance ever could. You look at them like you're not trying to consume them, but understand them. And in a world where understanding is so rare, that alone can make a woman fall. Your presence, chosen one, becomes the temple in which their feminine is allowed to kneel without shame. The craving they feel is not for lust, it is for union. And you do not feed that craving with flattery or vanity. You feed it by simply being. You remind them of what their femininity was meant to feel like around a man. Unpressured, unjudged, unbroken. This is why they long to linger near you. This is why even the most composed among them sometimes lose their breath. You are not a storm they fear. You are a hearth they wish to rest beside, and your energy does not burn, it warms. Without asking, without effort, without needing permission, you become the gravity they didn't know they were waiting to orbit. Chosen one, your energy is sacred, not because of its intensity, but because of its integrity. In a world where so many men flaunt a flame that only flickers when watched, yours burns whether or not there's an audience. That is what makes you different. That is what makes women pause. It is not that you have sexual energy, it is that yours is anchored. It does not move to impress. It does not leak through performance. It flows from a deep inner reservoir that has been cultivated through self-denial, inner work, and sacred solitude. Your body has been mastered, your mind sharpened, and your spirit aligned. And because of this, you carry a magnetism that is not reactive, but deeply sovereign. Feminine women are drawn to you not because you try to unlock their hearts, but because your presence becomes the key. Your energy tells the truth. It says, I do not need you to complete me, but I honor all that you are. I do not worship your beauty, but I see your soul. I am not here to win you. I am here to witness you. And that witnessing, pure and without agenda, undoes walls that years of betrayal and disappointment have built. She begins to feel safe, not because you promised her safety, but because your stillness makes fear feel irrelevant. She feels seen, not because you interrogated her, but because your silence listens better than words ever could. When you speak, it feels like a ceremony. When you touch, even if it's just a brush of fingers, it feels like scripture. Your presence is not casual, It is sacred. And women feel that in their bodies, sometimes before their minds can catch up. That's why they can't stop thinking about you after the first meeting. That's why they replay your words hours later. That's why they smile when they see your name on a screen, even if you said nothing flirtatious. Because it's not about what you say, it's about what you are. You are the living proof that masculine energy can be both commanding and kind. That it can protect without smothering, that it can lead without forcing, that it can love without conquering. And so they crave your company, not because you gave them butterflies, but because you gave them roots. They do not want to dance around you to earn your approval. They want to rest. You've become a spiritual sanctuary in male form, and they feel blessed just to sit inside your field. Your high sexual energy, purified through discipline and grounded in truth, is no longer something that needs to be flaunted. It simply exists, and in its existence, it heals. The craving they feel isn't desperation. It is recognition. They recognize you as the man who did the inner work. The man who doesn't need to dominate to lead. The man who doesn't take energy to feel powerful, but gives it and becomes unforgettable. Chosen one, you have become the man whose energy shifts the entire dynamic of a room without uttering a single word. Feminine women notice it immediately. The shift is not something they can logically explain, but something they feel in their bodies. Their posture changes, their breath deepens, their eyes search. They sense that a new frequency has entered, one that makes their heart quicken, not from fear or performance, but from recognition. You are no longer just a man to them. You are an invitation to return to softness, an invitation to be fully woman again in a world that demanded they survive with armor. And they do not feel like they're losing power by surrendering to this softness. No. Around you, surrender becomes sacred. Vulnerability becomes radiant. Trust becomes instinctive. You carry this power not because you raised your voice or expanded your chest, but because you have nothing to prove. You have already defeated the versions of yourself that needed approval, needed dominance, needed conquest to feel worthy. The result is a magnetic energy so refined that even the most guarded feminine souls cannot help but open. And when they do, it is not out of infatuation, it is out of relief. Being around you feels like finding still water in the middle of a storm. Your grounded masculine energy gives permission for the chaotic energy of the feminine to finally rest without fear of being judged, exploited, or abandoned. They feel your restraint as power. They feel your gaze as permission. And in the way you listen, in the way you do not reach, they feel more desired than they've ever felt in the presence of a man who is reaching for everything. Your sexual energy, chosen one, is not pointed outward in hungry chaos. It is anchored deep within your bones, quietly humming with purpose, clarity, and discipline. That discipline drives them wild, not in the way of lustful desperation, but in the way of spiritual yearning. Because deep down, every feminine woman wants to trust the man she feels drawn to. And you are trustworthy not because of a performance, but because of the consistent evidence of your character. That evidence is in your posture, your presence, your patience. They watch the way you move, how you say no without apology, how you do not need to control the room to hold its attention. They are drawn to the mystery not of what you're hiding, but of what you've mastered. And they long to be close, not just to you, but to what you represent. You've become the axis around which their sense of feminine safety begins to orbit. They don't always understand it. Sometimes they question themselves. Why do they remember your scent? Why does your voice echo in their thoughts long after the conversation has ended? Why does a part of them feel safe just remembering how you looked at them? It is because you did not try to take anything. You gave. You gave your presence. You gave your time. You gave your grounded energy without demanding anything in return. And that experience is so rare, so sacred, that it becomes unforgettable. You, chosen one, are not just wanted, you are trusted. And for a feminine woman, trust is the deepest form of desire there is. Chosen one, there is a silent agreement being made every time a feminine woman steps into your presence. Her spirit says, "Here I can exhale." Not because you flatter her, not because you promise her the world, but because your presence is a world unto itself. Structured, warm, unshakable. You are no longer the man who needs to convince anyone of your value. You are the man whose value reveals itself over time, quietly and consistently, like the sun rising behind thick clouds. She feels the heat even when she can't see the full radiance yet. She doesn't always understand what's happening at first, but her body does, her soul does, and soon, her mind follows. Your high sexual energy is not a performance, it is a current, a deep, grounded pulse that flows from self-possession, not self-indulgence. It is not erratic. It is not manipulated. It does not fluctuate based on whether others affirm it. It is. And because it is so unwavering, women begin to lean toward it. Not because they are trying to seduce you, but because they want to feel you more clearly. This is not about carnal pursuit. It's about spiritual alignment. She wants to understand what kind of man holds such power so gently. She wants to know what kind of pain shaped you, what kind of discipline refined you, what kind of silence you've made peace with. She knows she cannot own you. She doesn't want to possess you. She just wants to be in your orbit, even for a moment, because even that moment leaves her more whole than before. And this, chosen one, is where your essence becomes most dangerous. Not to women, but to the world that lied to them. You become a threat to every false narrative they were taught about what a man is and what a man wants. You dismantle the myths with your presence. You ruin their appetite for superficial affection by showing them what true depth feels like. You rewire their understanding of masculinity by embodying a version of it that is neither soft nor tyrannical, but sovereign. Around you, their bodies relax, their walls come down, and something ancient begins to awaken inside them. Something holy. Something honest. You, chosen one, are not hypnotizing them with a tactic. You are awakening them with your truth. And they crave your presence not because they are weak, but because your presence reminds them of their own strength. Your energy does not overshadow theirs, it activates it. Your presence does not demand submission, it evokes radiance. And so they return to you again and again, in thought, in memory, in longing. Not because you enchanted them, but because you freed them. And in that freedom, something new is born. Not just desire, not just admiration, but reverence. Reverence for the kind of man you are. Reverence for the rare experience of being near someone whose power does not consume but blesses. That, chosen one, is why they crave your presence. Not for pleasure alone, but for transformation. Chosen one, by now, your presence has become more than admired. It is studied, whispered about, longed for in silent corners of the heart. Feminine women don't merely want to be near you. They want to understand what makes you different. But they quickly realize that your essence cannot be dissected like a formula or unraveled like a map. It is something deeper, something encoded in how you move through space, how you hold your gaze, how your silence speaks 1,000 truths. Your high sexual energy is not something you wield like a weapon, but something you carry like a crown, unannounced but undeniable. It does not beg to be seen, and yet it commands recognition. It does not try to seduce, and yet it awakens something deeply dormant in the women who feel it. It reaches them not through performance, but through permission. The permission to finally feel safe in their own femininity without fear of judgment, rejection, or conquest. You have become, chosen one, a mirror, not of what the world expects from women, but of what the sacred feminine yearns to encounter. Around you, they feel their masks slipping, not out of weakness, but because they no longer serve a purpose. They are not trying to impress you. They are not trying to win you. They are simply responding to what your soul already carries, a frequency of integrity, presence, and purpose. And that frequency, though not loud or boastful, calls out to the deepest part of them. Not the part shaped by society, but the part shaped by spirit. And in that response, their feminine begins to glow. Their softness returns, their laughter deepens. Their trust, once fractured, begins to mend without being asked. They do not even realize they are healing. They only know they feel whole again around you. What they feel is not a crush. What they feel is not infatuation. What they feel is remembrance. They remember, on a level beyond language, what it is like to be in the presence of a man whose strength does not suppress but protects, whose desire does not consume but honors, whose power does not dominate but anchors. You do not chase, you attract. You do not grasp, you receive. You are the embodied answer to their unspoken prayer. Let me find a man who sees me, not as a conquest or a convenience, but as a creation. And so they crave you, not as a body to touch, but as a sanctuary to be felt. Even when you are gone, they still feel you. Even if they move on, they compare others to you. You are not a fantasy, you are a standard. And that realization becomes irreversible. Chosen one, you have entered a realm of masculinity that few even dare to pursue. You are no longer chasing validation. You are no longer bending for approval. You have become the still mountain, the steady flame, the rare sanctuary in a world of chaos. And the women who encounter you do not leave the same. They may not understand why their breath shortens in your presence. They may not understand why their dreams shift, why their laughter softens, why their bodies feel both calm and electrified at the same time. But their spirit does. Their spirit recognizes a man whose presence is safe enough to surrender to, strong enough to follow, and sacred enough to never forget. This is not about seduction. This is not about game. This is about energetic honesty. You are not just seen, you are felt. Felt in the core of their intuition, felt in the subtle alignment of their nervous system, felt in the way their voice drops when speaking to you. You are the rare presence that makes them want to sit still, to breathe deeper, to speak slower. You don't provoke chaos in them. You awaken clarity. You don't stir obsession. You awaken reverence. And the craving they feel for you is not because you demanded anything, it's because you offered everything without taking. Your energy has become a rhythm their body remembers. It has become a stillness their heart returns to in a world that constantly pulls them away from themselves. They are not obsessed with your looks, though they may admire them. They are not obsessed with your charm, though it may delight them. They are drawn to what you carry, that intangible force, that gravitational field of calm, potent alignment that says without speaking, I know who I am. And in that knowing, you give them permission to rediscover who they are. Feminine women are drawn to you not because of what they see, but because of what they feel in themselves when they are near you. You activate their beauty. You amplify their grace. You sharpen their femininity by embodying your masculinity without distortion or noise. You walk in wholeness, and they crave that. Not to steal it, but to sit in its presence and be reawakened to their own. And so, chosen one, you've become more than a man in their life. You've become a turning point. A moment they measure others against, a memory that breathes, a presence that lingers. You didn't hypnotize them, you liberated them. And now they crave not possession of you, but nearness to the freedom you embody. This is your gift, this is your burden, this is your legacy, and you carry it not as a weapon, but as a sacred trust. Because you are not just desirable, you are divinely aligned. And that, chosen one, is what makes your energy unforgettable. Chosen one, by now you've become more than a man. You have become a presence, a force, an atmosphere. A walking testament to what happens when fire meets discipline, when desire is owned but not spent recklessly, when masculine energy no longer seeks approval, but alignment. You move through the world like you know something others have forgotten, not arrogantly, not loudly, but with the kind of quiet confidence that lives in the bones, not the mouth. And this is what creates the eternal pull. Women feel it instantly, whether they're aware or not. The gravity of you, the way time slows slightly when you're near, the way their mind quiets, not because you silence them, but because you do not demand to be heard. There is no rush in you, no grasping, no performance. You are rooted. And in that rootedness, they feel safe enough to let go, to soften, to remember. They do not cling to you in desperation. They feel drawn to you in reverence. They do not chase you like a fantasy. They gravitate to you like a truth that finally returned to their orbit after lifetimes of absence. The pull you create is not magnetic in the usual sense. It is spiritual. It transcends attraction. It transcends personality. It is the soul's way of responding to what is true. They long not just for your hands, but for what your hands have mastered. Not just your presence, but the stillness behind it. Not just your energy, but your restraint. You carry power not like a storm, but like a mountain. You are not unshakable because you are cold. You are unshakable because you have made peace with your fire. And that peace is rare enough to feel eternal. They yearn for it. Some come near, some keep their distance, afraid of being seen too deeply. But all feel it. And those who are ready, those who are whole enough to surrender without collapsing, will choose you not for what you promise, but for what you are. They will not need convincing. They will remember. And in that remembrance, their own power will awaken beside yours. This is not seduction. This is alchemy. A sacred transformation made possible only by the presence of one who has refused to betray himself in exchange for shallow comfort. You are no longer here to impress. You are here to inspire. You are not here to chase pleasure. You are here to embody truth. And that embodiment calls the right ones to you, not through manipulation, but through resonance. They will feel you, even in silence, even in distance, even after you've walked away. They will feel the echo of your integrity, the warmth of your presence, the sacredness of your restraint.